Please
Mail
don't
order
go.
bride was
Not
rejected for
like
being
this.
too shy and
I
quiet,
have to.
but a
It's
man
the only
fined at the
way.
station took her. Alina's heart was racing as the train pulled into the busy station. She had never seen such a large, crowded place before. People hurried past, their feet clicking loudly against the concrete floors. The noise, the chatter, the rumbling of luggage carts, it was all overwhelming. She clutched her small bag tightly, feeling the weight of her journey and the unfamiliarity of her new surroundings pressing down on her. Every sound seemed louder than it should be, every movement faster than she could keep up with. She had traveled a long way from her small hometown. In her village, life had been quiet and predictable. She had known every neighbor, every street, every corner where children played. Here, everything was different. The air smelled of smoke, food, and exhaust. The signs on the walls were in a language she barely understood, and she felt lost among the sea of strangers. Yet, despite her nervousness, she had a spark of hope. Alina had come to this country as a mail-order bride. The idea had been both exciting and frightening. She had heard stories from other women, some happy, some sad. Still, she had dared to hope that she might find someone who would treat her with kindness and respect. She had imagined a man who would understand her, someone who would be patient with her quiet nature. She pictured long conversations, gentle walks, shared laughter, and small, meaningful gestures that showed care. As the train slowed to a halt, she took a deep breath and tried to steady her trembling hands. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She stepped onto the platform, her shoes clicking softly against the tiles, and scanned the crowd for the man who was supposed to meet her. She knew his name, had seen his photograph, and remembered his instructions clearly. But when she spotted him, standing with his arms crossed and his eyes fixed elsewhere, something inside her sank. He looked at her, his expression shifting quickly from curiosity to irritation. Alina felt a pang of nervousness, and she tried to straighten her back and smile politely. "Hello," she said softly, her voice almost lost in the noise of the station. He frowned. "You're quiet," he said, almost as if he were disappointed before she had even spoken. "I expected someone more lively." Alina blinked. She had been prepared for nervousness, for questions, for introductions. She had even practiced speaking up, making small talk, and trying to sound confident. But she had never been someone who commanded attention with loud words or bold gestures. Her nature was gentle, careful, thoughtful. She listened more than she spoke, observed more than she acted. This was who she was, and she had hoped that the man waiting for her would see the beauty in that. Instead, she was met with rejection. The words hit her like a cold wind. "I'm sorry," he added abruptly, turning away. "I don't think this will work." For a moment, Alina felt frozen, unable to move, unable to speak. The bustling station faded around her. She wanted to ask him to wait, to explain herself, to show that there was more to her than being quiet. But no words came. Her throat tightened and a lump rose in her chest. She felt small, invisible, and utterly alone. She stepped back from him, clutching her bag as if it were a shield against the harshness of the world. People passed by, brushing past her elbows, their conversations a blur. No one noticed her. She was just another face in the crowd, lost and uncertain. The man she had hoped would be her partner had turned away, and for the first time, Alina felt the weight of reality pressing down on her. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. She had always been taught to be strong, to face difficulties quietly and with dignity. She walked slowly through the station, her eyes scanning the signs, trying to find a place to sit, a corner where she could think. The benches were crowded, the floors sticky from spilled drinks, and the air smelled faintly of metal and oil. Everything was unfamiliar. Everything reminded her that she was far from home. As she sat down, her hands trembling slightly, she allowed herself a moment to breathe. She thought about her family back home, about the life she had left behind. She remembered the laughter of her younger siblings, the warmth of her mother's hands, the smell of bread baking in the small kitchen of their home. Those memories brought comfort, but also a sharp sting of sadness. She had left all that behind, stepping into a future that seemed uncertain and frightening. Alina tried to make sense of what had happened. She had been rejected not because she was unkind or unworthy, but because she was different from what the man had expected. She had been quiet, shy, and gentle, and somehow that had become a fault in his eyes. She wondered if she would ever find someone who could see beyond the surface, someone who would value her for who she truly was. Hours passed, and the station continued to bustle with activity. Elena remained seated, watching travelers hurry past with their luggage, families reuniting with hugs and laughter, and business people striding purposefully toward their destinations. She felt like an outsider looking in, a spectator of a life that was moving forward without her. Despite the fear and loneliness, there was a small spark of determination in her heart. She reminded herself that she had come this far, that she had traveled across the ocean and stepped into a new world. She could not let one rejection define her future. She had to find a way to survive, to navigate this unfamiliar place, and perhaps to find someone who would appreciate her true self. As evening approached, the station lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the platform. Elena's stomach growled, reminding her that she had not eaten since morning. She realized she needed to find a safe place for the night. She walked slowly toward the exit, her small bag bouncing gently against her hip. The streets outside were busy and noisy, filled with unfamiliar smells and sounds. Every step she took was cautious. She clutched her bag tightly, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she had to keep moving. Somewhere out there, beyond the noise and the crowds, there had to be someone kind, someone patient, someone who could see her for who she truly was. And so, with her head held high, despite the tears that threatened to fall and the weight of rejection pressing on her shoulders, Elena stepped out into the unknown. She was alone, she was scared, but she was not defeated. Deep inside, she carried a quiet hope, a hope that this journey, however difficult, would lead her to a life worth living. The night was just beginning, and with it came possibilities. Elena did not yet know that a chance encounter at the station would change her life forever. She did not know that someone, kind and gentle, would soon see the beauty in her quiet nature and offer her the care and love she had always dreamed of. For now, she walked forward, one cautious step at a time, into the city of strangers, carrying with her the courage of someone who had survived much and was ready to face whatever came next. Elena stepped out of the station and into the streets of the city. The evening air was cool, and the fading sunlight cast long shadows on the buildings around her. The city was alive with movement, people walking briskly, cars honking, buses rumbling past, but to her everything felt overwhelming. Every face seemed unfamiliar, every voice sounded hurried and strange. She clutched her bag tightly, feeling the weight of both her belongings and her growing anxiety. Her mind replayed the rejection again and again. The man she had come to meet, the one she had dreamed of sharing her life with, had turned away from her so quickly. Just because she was shy, just because she didn't speak loudly or assert herself in the way he expected, he had dismissed her as if she were not worthy. Elena felt a sting of hurt deep inside, a pain that went beyond disappointment. It was a quiet ache that came from being misunderstood, from feeling invisible in a place where everyone else seemed confident and bold. She tried to tell herself that it wasn't her fault. Being quiet, being gentle, being thoughtful, these were parts of who she was. They were not weaknesses. Yet, in this moment, with the city stretching endlessly around her and the night growing darker, it was hard to believe that anyone could see her in that light. The cold reality of being alone in a foreign country pressed down on her shoulders, and she felt the first real pangs of fear. Elena wandered through the streets, unsure of where to go. She looked for a hotel, a hostel, or even a small inn where she could spend the night. But everything seemed expensive, crowded, or just out of reach. The unfamiliar currency and confusing signs only added to her anxiety. Her stomach growled, reminding her she had not eaten in hours, and she realized that hunger made her feel even more vulnerable. She wished she had someone to guide her, someone who would help her navigate this new world. As she walked, she noticed people staring at her, or so it seemed. Her foreign appearance, her small frame, her timid movements, they all made her feel exposed. She tried to avoid eye contact, hoping to remain unnoticed, but the sensation of being watched made her shiver. The city, which might have seemed exciting to some, felt cold and unwelcoming to her. Every step she took was cautious, every glance around tense with uncertainty. Hours passed, and the city lights grew brighter, casting an artificial glow over the streets. Elena's feet ached from walking, and her shoulders were stiff from carrying her small bag. She found a small bench outside a closed cafe and sat down, letting out a quiet sigh. She pulled her bag close and hugged it, almost as if it were a source of comfort. Around her, life continued at its normal pace. Couples walked hand in hand, friends laughed as they exited a nearby theater, and delivery drivers hurried past with large boxes in their hands. She felt like an outsider looking into a world that moved without her. Her thoughts drifted back to her village, to the life she had left behind. She remembered the mornings when the sun rose over the fields, the sound of roosters crowing, the smell of fresh bread baking in her home. She remembered her mother's gentle hands, the laughter of her younger siblings, and the sense of security that came from being surrounded by people who knew and loved her. Those memories were bittersweet. They brought warmth to her heart, but also reminded her of what she had lost. Elena wondered how she had come to this point. She had been brave to leave her home, to travel so far for a chance at a new life. She had imagined that love and kindness awaited her, that a man would see her for who she truly was. But now, with the night settling in and the streets emptying, she questioned her decision. Had she been too hopeful, too trusting? She felt a wave of self-doubt wash over her, threatening to drown her courage. Just as despair began to creep in, Elena noticed a figure walking slowly toward her. He was a man, middle-aged, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor. He carried nothing but a small bag, and his pace was leisurely, as if he were not in a hurry to reach anywhere. There was something different about him, something gentle and patient that made Elena instinctively relax just a little. He noticed her sitting alone on the bench and paused. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice warm and non-threatening. Elena blinked, surprised by his approach. She hesitated, unsure if she could trust a stranger, but something in his eyes, a quiet kindness, encouraged her to respond. I'm fine," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously in her lap. He smiled gently. "You don't look fine, you look lost." Elena felt a mix of relief and embarrassment. She had not expected anyone to notice her struggle, let alone care. She nodded slowly. I don't know where to go. I'm new here," she admitted, her words trembling. The man sat down on the bench beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "It's okay," he said. "This city can be overwhelming at first. I know it seems big and confusing, but you'll find your way. Do you need help?" Elena hesitated again. She had been wary of strangers, of people who might take advantage of her, but there was something genuine in his tone, something that made her feel safe. "Yes, I think I need help," she whispered. Over the next few minutes they spoke quietly. Elena explained that she had come to the country as a mail-order bride and that her husband had rejected her because she was too shy and quiet. She spoke carefully, not wanting to burden him with too much, but he listened patiently, nodding and offering occasional words of reassurance. He did not judge her, he did not criticize her, he simply listened. And that, more than anything, made Elena feel seen. She realized that someone was finally noticing her not for what she lacked, but for who she truly was. The man, whose name was Daniel, offered to help her find a place to stay for the night. He explained that he knew a small inn nearby, safe and affordable, where she could rest and gather her strength. Elena accepted gratefully, feeling a mix of relief and gratitude. For the first time since her arrival, she felt that she might not be completely alone in this strange city. As they walked together, Elena noticed small things about Daniel that reassured her. He walked at a gentle pace, matching hers. He spoke softly, never rushing her. He seemed genuinely interested in making sure she felt safe and understood. The simple act of someone treating her with care and patience was deeply comforting. Along the way, they passed street vendors selling food, and Daniel encouraged her to try a small snack. She was hesitant at first, not used to buying food in the busy streets of a foreign city, but he guided her gently, showing her how to pay and what to order. She laughed quietly at her own nervousness, and he smiled, appreciating her honesty and humility. By the time they reached the inn, the sky had turned dark, and the city lights sparkled like stars. Elena felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the lights. For the first time since her rejection, she felt hope. She realized that not everyone would judge her for being quiet. Some people, like Daniel, could see the gentle strength in her personality, the kind of strength that did not need to shout to exist. Daniel helped her check into the inn, making sure she had everything she needed. He did not expect anything from her in return. His kindness was simple, genuine, and unconditional. Elena felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, not of sadness this time, but of relief and gratitude. As she settled into her small room, Elena reflected on the events of the day. The rejection at the station had been painful, almost unbearable, but it had also led her to a moment of unexpected kindness, to someone who could see her true worth. She realized that life, though unpredictable, could still offer moments of beauty and hope, even in the darkest times. She fell asleep that night feeling a little less afraid, a little more hopeful, and with a quiet certainty that perhaps, just perhaps, this city held more than just loneliness and fear. Perhaps it held a chance for connection, understanding, and even love. The next morning, Alina woke up to the soft light filtering through the small window of her in-room. The events of the previous day replayed in her mind, the rejection, the fear, the loneliness. But above all, she remembered Daniel's kindness. She felt a warmth that had not been there before, a quiet comfort that came from knowing someone had truly seen her. Despite her shyness, she felt a small spark of hope that perhaps not all people would judge her for being quiet. After a light breakfast at the inn, Alina ventured out with Daniel, who had offered to show her around the city. The streets were busy, but the familiarity of having a companion made them feel less intimidating. Daniel walked beside her, patiently answering her questions, guiding her through the crowds, and pointing out landmarks. He did not rush her, and he did not expect her to be outgoing or loud. He seemed content simply to be with her, and this eased the anxiety that had been building inside Alina since her arrival. As they walked, Daniel asked her about her life back home. Alina hesitated at first, unsure how much to share with a man she barely knew. But his gentle tone and kind expression encouraged her to speak. She told him about her village, the fields and rivers, the simple joys of family life, and the traditions she had grown up with. She described her childhood, her schooling, and her dreams of finding someone who would appreciate her gentle nature. Daniel listened attentively, never interrupting, never judging. He asked questions when appropriate, showing genuine interest in her stories. Each question was soft and thoughtful, never pushing her beyond what she felt comfortable sharing. Alina found herself opening up more than she had to anyone in a long time. She realized that Daniel did not see her shyness as a flaw. He seemed to value her honesty, her careful thought, and the way she observed the world. As they walked through a quiet park, Alina noticed the way Daniel paid attention to the small things, the flowers blooming along the path, the laughter of children playing in the distance, the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. He pointed out details that she might have overlooked, and in doing so, helped her see the city not as a frightening place, but as a space full of life and small wonders. They found a bench beneath a large tree and sat down. Alina's hands rested in her lap, her fingers lightly fidgeting with the hem of her dress. She felt nervous, unsure how to act around him, but Daniel's calm presence made it easier. He spoke about his own life in quiet, honest tones. He shared stories of his childhood, the challenges he had faced, and the small joys he found in everyday life. Alina listened, realizing that his gentleness matched hers in many ways, even though he carried himself with confidence she had never known. Over time, their conversation moved from stories of the past to hopes for the future. Alina spoke of her desire to belong somewhere, to have a home, and to find someone who would accept her fully. Daniel listened carefully, nodding and smiling, never dismissing her feelings. He encouraged her gently, telling her that everyone has a unique path, and that her quiet nature was not something to hide but something to embrace. Alina found herself laughing softly at his small jokes, a sound that felt foreign yet comforting to her own ears. She realized that Daniel had a way of making her feel at ease, of helping her forget the fear and loneliness that had haunted her since she arrived. His kindness was patient, consistent, and genuine, and Alina felt herself beginning to trust him in a way she had not trusted anyone before. As the day went on, Daniel guided Alina through the city, showing her the markets, the small shops, and the quieter streets where life moved at a gentler pace. He introduced her to simple customs, how to order food, how to navigate the public transport system, and how to interact with shopkeepers politely. Each lesson was delivered with patience and care, and Alina absorbed everything eagerly, feeling a growing sense of confidence. During a break at a small cafe, they sat and watched people passing by. Alina felt a sense of calm she had not experienced since leaving her village. She realized that Daniel's presence made the city less intimidating, that his support gave her the courage to explore and to adapt. She began to see that being shy and quiet was not a limitation. It was simply a part of who she was. And someone like Daniel could see the strength and beauty in those qualities. As they continued their walk, Daniel suggested visiting a small museum nearby. Alina agreed, curious and excited to see more of the city's culture. Inside the museum, she marveled at the paintings, sculptures, and artifacts. Daniel gave her time to observe at her own pace, never rushing her or making her feel inadequate for taking her time. He explained details when asked, shared small stories about the artists, and encouraged her to express her thoughts. Alina felt a deep sense of connection, realizing that this man truly valued her mind and her perspective. By the time the museum visit ended, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city. They walked back slowly, enjoying the quiet of the evening and the soft light reflecting off the buildings. Alina felt a sense of peace she had not felt in a long time. The rejection she had faced at the station was still a memory, but it no longer felt as painful. It had been replaced, at least in part, by the warmth of genuine kindness and understanding. They stopped at a small bridge overlooking a river, where the water shimmered in the fading sunlight. Daniel turned to Alina and asked her how she felt about her first days in the city. She hesitated, unsure how to put her complex emotions into words. But finally she spoke, her voice soft but steady. I feel scared sometimes and lonely, but I also feel hopeful. I think there are good people here. I think maybe I can belong. Daniel smiled gently, a smile that reached his eyes and made Alina feel seen. You will belong, he said quietly. You are strong and you have a kind heart. You just need the right people around you to see it. Alina felt tears well up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from a sense of relief and gratitude. For the first time, she realized that someone could understand her without asking her to change who she was. She did not need to be bold or loud to be valued. Her quiet strength, her careful thoughts, her gentle presence, these were things that mattered, and Daniel had shown her that they could be appreciated. As they walked back toward the inn, Daniel helped Alina feel more comfortable navigating the streets. He pointed out landmarks she could use to remember directions, explained bus routes, and even helped her buy a small notebook to jot down important information. Alina felt herself growing more confident, more capable, and more hopeful about her new life. That evening after returning to the inn, Alina reflected on the day. She realized that Daniel had done more than just guide her through the city. He had given her something far more valuable, a sense of trust and safety. He had shown her that not everyone would reject her for being quiet, that there were people who could see her for who she truly was. Alina understood that building a connection with someone would take time, patience, and courage. But for the first time, she felt that it was possible. Daniel's gentle support had planted a seed of hope, and she was determined to nurture it. She began to imagine a future where she could feel safe, understood, and valued, not for what she appeared to be on the surface, but for the quiet strength that lay within her. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Alina felt a sense of calm and anticipation. The city no longer seemed entirely overwhelming. There was still fear and uncertainty, but there was also the possibility of connection, friendship, and perhaps, in time, love. She realized that her journey had only just begun, and that with someone like Daniel by her side, she could face the challenges ahead with courage and hope. Days turned into weeks, and Alina began to feel more comfortable in the city. Each morning, she woke up with a small but growing sense of confidence, knowing that she was not alone. Daniel continued to be a patient and gentle guide, helping her adjust to this new world in ways she had never imagined. The city, which had once seemed loud and overwhelming, slowly began to feel like a place where she could belong. Their days were filled with simple routines that brought Alina both comfort and reassurance. Daniel would meet her at the inn, and they would explore the city together. Sometimes it was just a walk through quiet streets, watching children play in parks or listening to street musicians. Other times, Daniel would take her to markets, where she learned to interact with shopkeepers, bargain politely, and choose fresh ingredients for simple meals. Each experience taught her not only practical skills, but also the confidence to navigate a world that had once felt impossible to understand. Alina began to notice small changes in herself. She no longer felt as shy or hesitant when speaking to strangers. Her eyes, once downcast, began to meet the gaze of others with a gentle steadiness. She smiled more often, laughed softly at Daniel's jokes, and even began to offer her own thoughts and observations. Each small step felt like a victory, and Daniel never failed to encourage her, always reinforcing her sense of worth and ability. One afternoon, they visited a quiet library tucked away on a side street. Alina had always loved books, and the library was a place of wonder for her. Rows upon rows of books stretched endlessly, and the scent of paper and ink filled the air. Daniel let her wander among the shelves, taking her time to explore, and he occasionally offered suggestions of books that might interest her. She felt a thrill of excitement as she selected a few volumes, realizing that learning and discovery were still possible, even in this new country. They sat together in a quiet corner, reading side by side. Alina occasionally read passages aloud, and Daniel listened attentively, commenting thoughtfully without interrupting her rhythm. She felt a deep sense of comfort in his presence, realizing that he valued not only her words but also her quiet, careful way of expressing herself. For the first time, she understood that being soft-spoken and observant was not a flaw, it was a gift, a quality that some people like Daniel could truly appreciate. As weeks passed, their relationship grew stronger. Daniel did not rush her, did not pressure her to speak or act in ways that were uncomfortable. He simply offered his support, guidance, and friendship. Alina found herself sharing more of her thoughts, her hopes, and her fears. She spoke of her childhood dreams, the life she had left behind, and the hope that someday she would find someone who could see her true self. Daniel listened with unwavering attention, validating her feelings and offering gentle encouragement. Alina began to notice small acts of kindness from Daniel that deepened her admiration for him. He would bring her favorite pastries from the market, offer her a warm scarf on chilly mornings, or simply wait patiently as she took her time deciding which path to walk through the city. These small gestures, though simple, spoke volumes. Alina realized that Daniel's kindness was not performative. It was genuine, consistent, and selfless. He treated her with respect and care, never making her feel inadequate for her quiet nature. One rainy afternoon, they found shelter under a small awning outside a closed shop. The streets were slick with rain, and the city felt colder and harsher than usual. Alina shivered slightly, pulling her coat tightly around her. Daniel noticed immediately and offered his arm to guide her through the puddles. "You don't have to rush," he said softly. "We have time. There's no need to hurry." As they walked together, Alina felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the rain. She realized that she trusted Daniel completely, in a way she had never trusted anyone before. She could be herself around him, soft, quiet, thoughtful, without fear of judgment or rejection. And that trust, that sense of safety, made her feel more alive than she had in months. During their walks, Daniel often encouraged Alina to reflect on her own strengths. He would ask her to share her opinions on small matters, from the books she read to the meals they prepared together. He never dismissed her answers, even when they were tentative or hesitant. Each time she spoke, he nodded thoughtfully, reinforcing the idea that her voice mattered, that her thoughts were valuable. Slowly, Alina began to see herself not as too quiet or too shy, but as someone capable of contributing meaningfully to the world around her. Alina also began to notice changes in how others responded to her. With Daniel by her side, she felt braver approaching shopkeepers, asking for directions, and engaging with strangers in polite conversation. People seemed to respond more positively to her calm demeanor, and she began to feel that she could navigate this city with dignity and confidence. Daniel's patient guidance had opened doors not only in the external world, but also within her own sense of self. One evening, after a long day of exploring, they sat on a bench overlooking the river. The water reflected the city lights, shimmering like stars. Alina felt a quiet peace settle over her. She turned to Daniel and said softly, "I never thought I would feel at home here. But with you it feels possible." Daniel smiled, a gentle expression that reached his eyes. "You don't need to change who you are," he said. "You are enough just as you are, quiet, gentle, thoughtful. You have strengths that many people overlook. I see them and I appreciate them." Alina felt tears prick at her eyes. She realized that she had spent so much of her life thinking her shyness was a flaw, a reason to be rejected or overlooked. But Daniel's words showed her that her quiet nature was not a weakness. It was a part of her identity that could be cherished and valued. She felt a surge of gratitude and a quiet joy that she had not known in a long time. Over the following weeks, their bond deepened even further. Daniel began to share more of his own thoughts, fears, and experiences, creating a space where Alina felt safe to do the same. They talked about their dreams, their struggles, and the little things that brought them joy. Alina began to see that love, trust, and companionship were not about loud declarations or grand gestures, but about patience, understanding, and the simple act of being present for one another. Alina's confidence continued to grow, but she also learned the value of vulnerability. She discovered that it was okay to ask for help, to express uncertainty, and to show emotions without fear of judgment. Daniel's consistent support reinforced this lesson, and Alina began to feel a sense of empowerment she had never experienced before. She realized that true strength was not in being bold or outspoken, but in being true to oneself, patient, and open to connection. One afternoon, while preparing a simple meal together, Alina paused to reflect on how far she had come. She had arrived in this city scared, lonely, and rejected, uncertain if she would ever find acceptance. Now she felt capable, valued, and most importantly, seen. Daniel's kindness and patience had shown her that she could be loved for who she truly was, and that there were people in the world who could appreciate the quiet strength she carried. Alina began to imagine a future filled with possibility. She thought about building a life where she could continue to grow, learn, and experience joy. She realized that the path to that life did not require her to change her nature, but to embrace it and share it with those who could understand and respect her. And in Daniel, she had found someone who did just that, someone who could walk beside her, support her, and see the beauty in her gentle, quiet spirit. As the days turned into weeks, Alina's life in the city began to feel less like a challenge and more like an adventure. Each step she took, each interaction she had, was a reminder that she was capable, valued, and deserving of care. Daniel's guidance and friendship had transformed her experience, turning fear and uncertainty into trust, hope, and the beginnings of love. Alina understood that the journey ahead would not always be easy. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when she would feel vulnerable. But she also knew that with patience, courage, and the support of someone who truly saw her, she could face anything. And as she looked at Daniel, sharing a quiet smile across the kitchen counter, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the unexpected kindness that had entered her life, guiding her toward a future filled with hope, trust, and connection. The months had passed quickly, and Alina could hardly recognize the timid, frightened girl who had first arrived at the station. Life in the city was no longer a constant wave of fear and uncertainty. Instead, it was a life filled with small victories, quiet joys, and the comforting presence of Daniel. She had learned to navigate the streets with confidence, engage with people politely, and even find her voice in conversations she had once avoided. But most importantly, she had discovered that she was capable of being seen, appreciated, and loved for who she truly was. Daniel had become more than a guide or a companion. He was a constant presence in her life, someone she could trust completely. His kindness had never wavered, and his patience had allowed her to grow at her own pace. Alina admired his gentle strength, the way he treated everyone with respect, and the quiet ways he showed he cared. For the first time, she felt that she could share not just her days, but her heart without fear. One bright morning, as they walked together through a park filled with blooming flowers and singing birds, Daniel paused and looked at Alina. There was a seriousness in his expression, a soft intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "Alina," he said gently, "I have something I want to ask you." Alina's hands trembled slightly. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had thought about this moment, dreamed of it even, but never truly expected it to happen so soon. She looked into Daniel's eyes, searching for a clue, a sign of what he might say. He took a deep breath, his voice steady but filled with warmth. "I know we have only known each other for a short time, but in that time I have come to see your true self. I see your kindness, your gentle strength, your thoughtfulness, and your honesty. And I want to spend my life with you, not because of what you appear to be on the outside, but because of who you are inside. Will you marry me?" Alina felt tears well up in her eyes. She had never imagined that her quiet nature, which had been a reason for rejection once, could now be the very quality that inspired such love and respect. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Yes, yes, I will." The moment was simple, unassuming, and yet profound. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic speeches, just two people standing together, seeing and accepting each other fully. Alina realized that this was the kind of love she had always hoped for, patient, understanding, and genuine. It was not about boldness or outward charm. It was about connection, trust, and the quiet strength of being truly known. In the weeks that followed, Alina and Daniel began preparing for their life together. They found a small apartment, cozy and filled with light, where they could build a home together. Alina decorated it with small touches that reminded her of her village, pictures of fields, handmade crafts, and the comforting colors of home. Daniel helped her with the practical arrangements, always patient, always supportive, never rushing or criticizing. Alina found herself thriving in this new environment. She cooked simple meals with care, arranged the apartment with attention to detail, and continued exploring the city with Daniel. Every day brought small joys: a shared cup of tea in the morning, a quiet walk along the river, a smile exchanged across the kitchen counter. She realized that happiness was not always found in grand gestures, but in the consistency of love, kindness, and presence. Their relationship deepened in ways Alina had never expected. They talked openly about their pasts, their dreams, and even their fears. Alina shared memories of her family, her childhood, and her early struggles with shyness. Daniel listened attentively, offering gentle encouragement and understanding. He shared his own experiences, the challenges he had faced, and the moments that had shaped him. In these conversations, Alina felt a deep bond forming, a connection built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. Alina also began to see the value in her own quiet nature. She realized that her careful thoughtfulness, her ability to observe and listen, and her gentle approach to life were not weaknesses. They were strengths, qualities that allowed her to form meaningful connections and bring comfort to those around her. Daniel's appreciation of these traits reinforced her growing self-confidence, and she began to embrace herself fully, without fear or doubt. One evening, as they sat together on their small balcony watching the sunset, Alina reflected on her journey. She thought of the station where she had been rejected, the fear and loneliness she had felt, and the uncertainty that had weighed on her heart. And she thought of Daniel, who had found her, guided her, and loved her without asking her to change. She realized that life had a way of leading her exactly where she needed to be, even when the path seemed impossible. Alina's gratitude for Daniel ran deep. She appreciated not just his kindness, but the way he had helped her see herself in a new light. She had learned that love was not about being someone you are not, but about finding someone who could see your true self and value it. In Daniel, she had found that person, the man who could see her quiet strength and embrace it fully. Their life together began to settle into a rhythm of shared routines and small joys. They cooked meals together, sometimes laughing over simple mistakes in the kitchen. They walked through the city, discovering new neighborhoods and quiet streets. They spent evenings reading together, sharing thoughts on books, and enjoying the comfort of each other's presence. Each day strengthened their bond, and Alina felt a sense of peace she had never known. Alina also maintained connections with her family back home, sharing stories of her new life and the kind man who had entered her world. She realized that she had not lost her roots, but had built upon them, creating a life that blended the warmth of her past with the promise of her future. She felt proud of herself for surviving the challenges, for facing her fears, and for embracing the opportunities that had come her way. One quiet morning, as Alina prepared breakfast, she looked at Daniel and felt a surge of affection and gratitude. She realized that the journey from rejection to acceptance had taught her valuable lessons, not just about love, but about resilience, self-worth, and the importance of being true to oneself. She knew that her life had been transformed not by grand gestures, but by small, consistent acts of kindness and understanding. Daniel, noticing her thoughtful expression, smiled and asked, "What are you thinking about?" Alina laughed softly, a sound filled with warmth and contentment. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am," she said. "I never thought I could find someone who would see me for who I am and love me for it." Daniel reached out, taking her hand gently. "You are worth seeing," he said. "Your quiet strength, your kindness, your honesty, those are the things that matter. I am the lucky one to have found you." Alina felt a deep sense of happiness settle over her. She realized that love, trust, and partnership were not about perfection or outward appearances. They were about acceptance, patience, and the ability to see and value the true nature of another person. And in Daniel, she had found all of that and more. As the seasons changed, Alina and Daniel continued to build their life together. They faced challenges, of course, small disagreements, moments of doubt, and the everyday difficulties of adjusting to a shared life. But through it all, they relied on their foundation of trust, respect, and mutual appreciation. Each challenge became an opportunity to grow closer, to understand one another better, and to strengthen the bond they shared. Elena also began to dream more boldly about the future. She imagined a home filled with warmth and laughter, perhaps children who would inherit her gentle nature and Daniel's patience. She thought about ways she could contribute to her community, share her skills, and help others navigate challenges with kindness and courage. And she realized that her journey, from rejection to acceptance, from fear to trust, had prepared her to face the future with confidence and hope. One evening, as they sat together watching the stars, Elena reflected on how far she had come. She thought about the day she arrived at the station, rejected and uncertain, and the journey that had led her to this moment. She realized that every step, every challenge, every act of kindness along the way had shaped her into the person she was now, a woman who was confident, loved, and ready to embrace life fully. Daniel noticed her thoughtful silence and asked, "Are you okay?" Elena smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Yes," she said, "I'm thinking about how much has changed. I feel grateful and happy and ready for whatever comes next." Daniel took her hand in his, squeezing it gently. "We'll face it together," he said. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Elena felt a warmth in her heart that she had never known. She realized that love was not about perfection or grand gestures. It was about presence, patience, and the quiet understanding that someone could truly see and value you. And she had found that love, that understanding, and that partnership in Daniel. As they sat together under the night sky, Elena felt a profound sense of peace. She knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but she also knew that she had found a partner who would walk beside her through them all. She had learned that being quiet, shy, and gentle was not a flaw. It was a strength, a gift, and a part of the person she had always been meant to be. And with Daniel by her side, she felt ready to embrace the future, confident that love, kindness, and understanding would guide them through everything that lay ahead.